Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Big East Rewind. I am Chuck Everson, your host from Villanova University, and my co-host and a sharp dresser if you're watching this because we're wearing the exact same outfits. My boy from Syracuse University, the point guard, the doctor, Sonny Sparrow, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, Sonny?
Chuck, I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good. We had a good day yesterday. That was great. We hung out a little bit. We don't get to do that a lot, Sonny, on our off days and stuff. So we got to go take in some NFL football with a couple of other Big East alumni, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple of big guys from Georgetown, the Georgetown Hoyas. Who would have thought the Orangemen would be hanging out with the Hoyas at a tailgate and having fun, right? So
I know. Yeah, listen.
We had Reggie Williams and Big Mike Graham with us the other day.
5 years ago, I'd be thrown out of the club if that happened.
You would have got thrown out. That's right.
I'd be thrown out of the Orange Club, banned from the Dome for life. So I'm glad that we settled.
They're good guys. I mean, who knew? I mean, we've been friends now with Reggie probably 2 years since we started this thing, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Really quality guys,
Mike too. I mean, it's been great. So. Well, today's going to be another great day, Sonny, because we're going to take a trip to Friartown, my man.
Friartown.
Can you believe it? We haven't had the Friars in the house in how long, Sonny? Since Del Rey and Harold Starks, right? It's been a while.
He might be challenging you for best product.
I like placement. It. We're going to see it in a second. I love it, man. It's pretty good. So we have a Providence Friar Hall of Famer, Sonny, and a big guy in the house.
I know. I knew. I was waiting for it.
Big guy. You knew that, though, Sonny.
I was waiting for it, man.
You knew that. From PG County, where all the ballers are from, Sonny. So we're going to talk to him about that, too.
We were just down there.
He scored over 1,200 points for the Friars in his career. He was the 21st pick by the Chicago Bulls. And, by the way, a 3-time NBA champion. Okay. And he's currently with Fox Sports doing color commentary. The Providence Friar legend, Dickey Simpkins, is joining us. How are you, Dickey? How you doing, pal?
I'm good. I appreciate you, Chuck and Sonny, bringing me on board. What I've seen you guys growing this has been phenomenal. It's been great, man. And bringing the flavor of Big East history to the attention of everybody. I think a lot of times people sleep on the Big East or they sleep on the history a little bit, but Big East is one of the original powerhouse conferences out there with players. So I'm just glad to be on.
Yeah, and we're thankful that you're here too. And this year, you talked about growing this thing a little bit, Dickey. So Sonny and I are going to get the opportunity to go to Big East Media Day. John Paquette, the media relations person for the Big East Conference, has invited us to go, which now, as Sonny will tell you, we are what, Sonny?
We are professional journalists.
Professional. So that means we get a little clout now. So that's good. We like that.
Yeah. You guys are in the media world like me now. When I'm doing the TV games for the Fox and I'm doing Big East games, you're in the media. You're in the media world now. You're officially media.
The only difference between you and me, Dickey, to be honest with you, is I got to take a few cameras off because the camera adds 10 pounds. I need to lose a couple of these cameras so I'm in good shape like you, So talk to us about what it was about. First of all, how did you get involved with the media? How did you go from playing to being behind a microphone?
So as I started winding down my basketball career, I sat down and wrote a list of things that I wanted to pursue in my next phase of my life after basketball. And one of the things was television, sports analyst on TV. And I remember calling Greg Burke, who was our sports information director at Providence, who was also the former husband of Doris Burke. And when I called him, he told me to call Doris. And I had known Doris when I first came to Providence when she started in the TV. She was working with Nesson, if you remember that back in the day. Yeah. And so I called Doris up, told her I wanted to get in TV, and she pointed me in the right direction and connected me with some people, and I took it from there. And Had some conversation with ESPN, and then ESPN brought me on board for, I think it was in 2007. No, it was the end of 2006. They brought me on board and gave me 2 games. And then after those 2 games, it went from there. And the next thing you know, I got more games. I worked with ESPN for 5 years. And then I switched over to Fox TV once they started televising the Big East.
Did you have any background prior? Like, did you call some games, like local games, or do some TV, radio stuff, anything?
Well, my prior media experience was, believe it or not, I took a television production class in high school. I broadcasted 3-on-3. The Chicago Bulls used to throw a 3-on-3 tournament every summer, and the championship would be on television on, I think it was Sports Channel at the time. And I was able to do the championship game. So that was kind of some experience. And then when I was at Providence, um, I had my own radio show on the Providence radio station for two and a
Okay.
half years. A guy who was running the radio station, he said he needed DJs. He came to me, said, "Hey man, you think about doing this?" I was like, "Man, I love entertainment." Started my own show and was the producer of my own show. Got all my materials, took phone calls, played music. And I was the Moon Man on the radio, WDOM 91.3. You're listening to the Moon Man. When the sun goes down, the moon comes up. Taking calls. So that was my experience. Sonny, that's all my experience before.
That's great, though. That's big time
TV.
experience. In my opinion, that's huge. I had a little call-in show, but it was at the local rock station, and it was Sunday night for an hour, and it was me and the co-host. And the co-host did everything. I just answered certain questions, and that was about it. Picked some tunes to play. That was all, but not like what you just described. But you had the whole thing.
Yeah, it was fun.
Right.
It was fun, and I love entertainment. So that's how I got it. That's how I went in that direction. That's how TV analyst was one of the things that I put on my list.
It's great.
So there's a lot of prep work that people don't know about, Dickey, to go to do that kind of stuff, right? I mean, you got to go down to practice. You got to interview coaches and players and get to know all the kids that are playing. And you probably you got a scouting report almost like when you were playing with Chicago, right? I mean, talk about the prep that you do to get ready for a game, especially
Absolutely,
teams
Chuck.
you don't know. I mean,
right. It's like it's Chuck. It's like you and Sonny. I'm sure you do a lot of preparation for your interviews. Get to know, you study up on who you're going to bring on. It's the same thing. I spend at least 3 days before game. I get started 3 or 4 days before the actual game and start getting my prep, kind of seeing what the team did the last game, familiarizing myself with all the players, who's going to start. Luckily for me, I have a relationship with all the coaches in the Big East, so it's easy for me to communicate with them and sit down. And a lot of I used to have my own AAU program out of Chicago, so I've seen a lot of coaches, I've seen a lot of kids throughout the years, so I'm kind of familiar. So it makes it a little easier for me. And then, like you said, Chuck, when it's Big East games and I start seeing Big East teams over and over again, I'm kind of already know what's going on. But it's difficult. It's a little bit more difficult when they're playing those non-conference games and studying the styles and having interesting things to talk about on the TV, and having preparation ready in case the game becomes out of hand, which you hope it doesn't. But a lot of things you have to prepare for and be set. So yeah, it takes some time to get ready for the games.
You watch game film as well, because Raph was on with us when we first started. In fact, he was our first guest, and he talked about watching game films when he started, and so he knew what defense when they went into a certain set. He knew what the set was, and if it was against a zone or a man-to-man. He got really, really, really in depth with it. Do you go that far into it where you're actually watching game film?
Yeah, Raph is the ultimate veteran in this game. He's Mr. Miyagi. He's the ultimate teacher of this game right here. And Raph is, obviously I've listened to Raph when I was playing. I remember Raph doing our games when I was playing, got to know Raph, study Raph, and he's giving me pointers. But yes, definitely do film study before I do a game, and just understanding the style, things that they may run, so I have a feel if it happens in the game, or I can predict, have a higher chance of predictability in the game. So yeah, I study a lot of film and really study the players and the style and the coaches. So I spend time with that.
That's cool. And so, like we said in the opening, you grew up in PG County, right? So in Maryland, and talk about what that was like. I mean, going to the park down there, you could run into almost anybody, right? There's so many players that came out of PG County, and what's the other one? King? Is it? There was two spots down in Maryland where all the big basketball players come from. PG County was the big one. That's where a lot of, there had to be 12, 14, 15 pros, something like that, come out of there, right? So talk about what that was like going down to the park and playing in PG County.
Yeah, the famed PG County. I was born in Washington, D.C. My parents moved us out to Fort Washington, Maryland, in PG County, and which is also known, that area is known as the DMV.
Right.
But it's a well, it's a, at one point in time, I think it was I don't want to say a well-kept secret, but I know Kevin Durant he did a, excuse me, a documentary on PG County to kind of give some flavor of it, but it's so hard to encompass all of it in a short amount of time on the video. But growing up in PG County, it was the best of the best. It was the talent of the talent. It was college coaches coming through PG County on a regular basis. And it's funny because when you look in the NBA over the past 10, 15 years, I mean, it's always a crop of PG County players playing in the NBA or have gotten drafted. So, I mean, I remember growing up, there was this gym. Dr. Carr used to have this gym, and it would be NBA players, college players, and it would be a select few high school players in the area that would be invited to play. And you only got one shot. And I always tell this story. It's funny because my first shot, I was a freshman in high school. And I walk in the gym, and the first person I see, it's funny, you all brought him up at the beginning of this show, was Michael Graham. And Michael Graham at the time, I grew up watching Georgetown. I grew up watching Big East and ACC. And Michael Graham was by far, and still is in my eyes, one of the meanest, toughest, top three toughest dudes that I've ever seen in college basketball at that time. And I walk in the gym as this skinny ninth grader. And everybody from the DMV, from PG to the city is in there. And I'm like, I have to guard Michael Graham. And I knew this was my only chance. I can't back down no matter what happens. If he throws an elbow or whatever, you have to hang in there. And I did. And after that, I got the blessing to continue to come back, and my game grew from that point in time. But just playing against guys like Walt Williams, who played at Maryland, who played in the NBA, going to that gym,
I was going to say, his coach Williams said he was one of the best, most underappreciated guys from Maryland.
Yes, I mean, when I played against Walt, I never saw him as a point guard, and when he got to Maryland, he became Walt the Wizard, the point guard, which was interesting. But Walt Williams was super talented. I played against a lot of guys that may not have made the NBA, but played high-level college basketball, and just were phenomenal in high school at the time. And then, just overall in the DMV, that area was just, I mean, you had Grant Hill playing in Virginia, Michael Smith playing in the city, Randolph Childress and I were in high school together in the ninth grade. And so PG County was just filled with talent on the court and a competitiveness that you had. And the only way you were going to get stamped, we call it stamped, Chuck and Sonny. When you get stamped, that means you have gone and competed and played in every part of PG County or the DMV, DC, and the cracks and crevices to get stamped as an official, this guy can play. And so I always made sure I went everywhere to play, so nobody could say I was scared to play anywhere.
Yeah.
I got to
So
ask you, because you played for Rick Barnes, but did Rick Barnes recruit you or did somebody prior to him?
So Rick Pitino was there. He was recruiting me first. Herb
Right.
Sendek was on that staff. He was recruiting me first.
Yeah.
And then when Rick Barnes took over, Larry Shyatt and Fran Fischella, they started recruiting me real hard. And the assistant coach, Mark Anderson, really started recruiting hard because, the DC area was a hotbed, and Coach Barnes had just been there at George Mason. So he knew the level of talent.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that was who continued the recruiting once Rick Barnes took over.
Yeah, that's what I was curious because I knew he had those roots, but I didn't know if he started the recruitment or, who got in.
Yeah.
How long was he at Providence?
So when I got there, he had only been there for 2 seasons. George Mason was his first head coaching job. He was there for 1 year, I think. And then he came to Providence. And I came the third season he had been at Providence. So it
Okay.
was early in Rick Barnes' career, Coach Barnes'
Gotcha.
career.
And you had Dan Gavitt as an head or as an assistant coach too.
DG, that's my guy, man. He started off as I want to say he was a grad assistant at the time, maybe. And then after that first year I was there, he moved up to a full-time assistant. But Danny and I are very close. That's my guy. I mean, I'm close with everybody. Shyatt, Fran Fischella has been great to me with TV. And I see Coach Barnes on a regular basis. So yeah, that was the staff.
yeah, now Danny's Mr. March Madness, right? He's in charge of everything March Madness
Yeah,
tournament.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Danny's running. He's running. He's running the show over there with March Madness and keeping
That's a
a
thankless
sight
job,
on
Dickey. I
Wiggle.
mean, if you put it together and it all goes well, it was supposed to go well. And if
Right.
something goes sideways, you didn't have the right team or then
Wrong
everybody's screaming
location,
and
wrong
hollering.
bracket. Yeah.
Wrong bracket, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So let me ask you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the AAU circuit. I know you played a little AAU, and I know
Well,
you
he
played,
also said he ran an AAU. He also had his AAU organization too.
yeah. So, but you played with Grant Hill, right? Wasn't he on your AAU team?
Yeah, Grant and I played. We played a spring and summer together with a team called Executive 3. It wasn't Grant and I original team, but it was a
Yeah.
team that was formed that Grant and I ended up playing on that team. And we went to nationals, and then Grant and I played in the Boston Shootout. I don't know if you guys remember the famed Boston Shootout.
Yeah.
It
Oh
was one
yeah,
of the
that was a
top
big one.
in the country. Yeah.
That
So
was
Grant
Dwayne
and I went up.
McClain played against Patrick. I'm pretty sure in that.
Yeah, it was a big, long time tournament. And one year it was Grant Hill, myself, and Michael Smith. We were on that Boston Shootout team, and we always seemed to get the bad end of the stick when we come across the Boston team. For some reason, things got tricky. But that
Anybody
was
else on that squad that we would have known, Dickey? But besides Grant, like you had to have
Grant
a
Hill.
squad. If you're going up to the Boston Shootout, you had to be good. They don't let just anybody go up
Yeah,
there.
no. We were good. It was Grant Hill, myself, Michael Smith. It was Charles. Remember Charles Smith that played at Georgetown?
Sure. Good player.
Sure do.
His younger brother Kurt Smith, who was very talented coming up in the DC area. He was the point guard. We had a guy named Ted Jeffries was on that team that went to Virginia, played at Virginia.
Wow.
So it was a talented team. We had one of my closest friends, Phil Wilson, who was 6'8" at the time, who played at West Virginia.
Did
Ended up
Lawrence
going
play
to
with
West
you guys?
Virginia.
Did you play with Lawrence Moulton?
No, Moulton didn't play with us you know what? He may have been with us that last year at the Boston Shootout because I played 3 years at the Boston Shootout.
Wow.
Moulton might have been with us that last year, but I can't remember. But we would also play in this New York DC game. So somehow they had formed this Riverside Church would put together this New York team to come down and play us in DC, and that was that was an event of all events. I
I
mean,
bet.
that had everybody that was hot. I mean, again, Grant, myself, Mike Smith, Lawrence Moten, Charlie Harrison, the late Charlie Harrison that played with Randolph at Wake Forest, Kenny Blakeney, who coaches Hampton and played at Duke. I mean, we were stacked. And New York had Red Archery and
Yeah, Red.
Anthony Cade and Chanel Scott and B. Reese. They were stacked too.
And a lot of those guys you wind up playing against when you get to the Big East, right?
Yep. I had been playing against those guys all through AAU at Nike camp. I don't know if you remember that Nike camp. It was only
Yeah.
one 100 top 100 camp. And I would see those guys at Nike camp, AAU. So we were familiar with each other by then we would see each other on college visits. And then once we got to the Big East, I mean, we all kind of knew each other and had played against each other a lot.
That was kind of the fun part about playing in the Big East. You played against a bunch of guys that you knew and you grew up playing with and against, right? Between the camps and all the other places that we played in. That was one of the coolest things about going to the Big East. Did that factor in to your decision to go to Providence?
Well, I went to Providence because I grew up watching Big East and ACC basketball, and I knew that was where I wanted to play. I was going to play in the Big East or the ACC. That was my dream. And then I was a big Georgetown fan. I was like Georgetown. I was a big Georgetown guy. But I also had a certain way about me that I wanted to kind of go away and create my own, I guess you could say, legacy or create my own way. I mean, Mike Bray, Coach K and Mike Bray will recruit me from Duke. Phil Ford, Dean Smith will recruit me in North Carolina. I mean, I was able to have the heavy hitters recruiting me. And it's funny, Big John Thompson, the late Big John Thompson, didn't come in until the 11th hour. But it was something about Providence. They had just went to the Final Four with Billy Donovan. And then Providence came in, and Coach Barnes came in, and I would see Providence on TV, and it was like, man, that's in the Big East. They play on TV, and I was like, that's somewhere I could go, get away from home, but not too far, and create my own path. And that's kind of how Providence. Because at first I was going to go to UConn. Dave Lato had me sealed to go to UConn. I was like, I'm going to UConn. My mother wanted me to go to Notre Dame. That was my first visit. Oh, I forgot another PG player, Monty Williams. So when I went to Notre Dame, Monty was there. And I came back from Notre Dame and I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be going there. And then Digger Phelps ended up retiring, so I wouldn't even have played for him. I go to UConn. I'm like, I'm going to go to UConn. But I still have a Providence visit left. And I go to Providence and I have a ball, and the team seemed like they had a great bond, and I could see myself. The school wasn't too big, and it didn't have to compete with a football team. I wanted, and I just loved that Providence was like the NBA of Providence.
Now let me ask you: did you have the starter jacket with Georgetown? Did you have the?
No, you know what, Sonny? I actually had I had a Notre Dame starter jacket.
Oh,
so it was like,
wow.
Yeah, it was like, and people thought I was going to Notre Dame. I remember when I came back to the school and I had this Notre Dame starter jacket on. Everybody thought I was going to Notre Dame, but Sonny, I did have those Georgetown Hoya Nikes though. I had those Hoya Nikes.
It says Hoya on the back.
They're making a comeback now, Dickey, the Hoya Nikes.
Yeah, I know, but the ones they sold in the store said Nike on the back. Only the Hoyas had the special.
Yeah, the Hoyas on the back. That's right.
I know. I know.
Yeah. So I did have those, and but I didn't have a Georgetown starter jacket.
Wow, how about that? So you wind up in Providence after the recruiting process. What are your first memories of stepping on the court for Coach Barnes at PC?
So we came in as, I want to say, either the fourth or fifth highest ranked recruiting class for Coach Barnes. Mike Smith, myself, Troy Brown, Rob Phelps, who was a prolific scorer out of New York, Franklin Weston. So I remember the first game we played. I played with Eric Murdoch my freshman year. That was when Eric Murdoch was hot, EMT time. Eric Murdoch broke the Stills record. I saw him drop 45 on Arizona when we went out there. But my first game as a freshman, I'm in the game. The ball comes off the rim, and I catch it and have a follow-up dunk. And so I'm a little excited.
Yeah.
So I put my hand up, I put my arm up in the air like that was me that got the dunk. The next thing I know, I hear the horn sound, and I'm coming out the game. I'm coming out the game to come sit the bench. And I'm like, man, I just got in the game. I get a dunk. Why am I coming out the game? I go sit down on the bench, and Mark Anderson, who was the assistant coach at the time, he said, "Oh, we took you out the game because we thought you were tired. You put your
Right.
fist up in the air." I said, "Man, what?"
That
And
was the
so,
international signal for every team. You give them a fist if you want to come
yes,
out.
Message
yes,
received.
yes,
Message
That's funny.
received.
yeah. Yeah, so I learned not to do that ever again, Chuck and Sonny. So that was I
Yep.
remember that as my first experience.
That was a teachable moment for those coaches.
There you go. That's what happens when you're a freshie. So now you guys have a pretty good team as you start to build up, right? And then you get into the Big East tournament. Who were some of the guys that you played against? Who were some of the guys that you played against earlier in your career? Like I know Zoe, you got it. You had to check him, right? I'm sure. Alonzo
I had to
and
play against I had to play against Alonzo, Matambo.
John
I had to
Wallace
play
probably
against
too, right?
John Wallace, but I had to play against Brian Shorter, the
Oh,
Ox at
yeah.
Pittsburgh. Played against Wardan at St. John's.
Curly too, right? At
Um,
BC.
played against Curly. Played against Conrad McCray.
Yeah.
Conrad, I was going to say.
Conrad, Billy Owens, and those guys, and
Wow.
LaRon Ellis. LaRon Ellis,
Ron Ellis, yeah.
Yeah, he was a baller,
yeah,
man.
played against him. Yeah. Who else
Those are
did we
days of
play
the big
against?
guys, man.
Those are the days of the big guys. And then when Miami came into the Big East, Big Constantine Popa, remember him?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So and then played against Luther Wright,
Yeah.
Rod Sellers at UConn.
So it was still
Anthony
that bump and grind down there and in the low post at that time, because the Big East was always, and we've talked about this a million times on the show, but the Big East has always been a physical conference, you know. So did you see any of that, like when you went out and played an ACC team or a team in the Big 12 or the Big 10? It wasn't nearly as physical as it was back home at the Big East, right? At that point?
No, it
You
wasn't.
were
It
kind of
wasn't
10
at
years
all.
after us, you know. You were probably about 9 or 10 years after Sonny and I. So it was still very physical at that point.
Yeah, it still had a level of physicalness. And then when I was graduating, transitioning out of Big East and college basketball, then the Big East kind of took a more I don't know if I want to say finesse, but it took a more hybrid.
Yeah.
More teams got a little bit more fast pace. And even though I played center, I came in. Fran Fraschilla tells me this all the time. He's like, "You were ahead of your time. You were beating guys up down the court. You could play off. You were skilled enough to play off the perimeter." But Coach Barnes, he resisted letting you do that. And I always tell him, I say, "I'm glad you realized that. You guys held me back. I could have been the number one pick in the draft if you let me just play like the guys are playing today." But no, it
Stretch
was
four. Could have been a stretch four.
yeah. Yeah, it could have been the original stretch war, but no, Chuck, it was still physical at the time. And it's still, I mean, Big John was still playing a physical brand of basketball at
Yeah.
Georgetown. PJ Calissimo was still playing a physical brand of basketball at Seton Hall. St. John's was playing pretty physical with Chanel Scott and,
Sure.
like I said, Wardan and some of those big
Wardan,
guys.
yeah.
And I played against Malik Sealy, the late Malik Sealy.
Rest in peace.
So I played against some talent. Like I said, Eric Murdoch was amazing my freshman year. But another piece of to answer your question, I ran into Damon Stoudemire the other day, and he was telling his story because we used to have a home away thing with Arizona, and he was telling this story to everybody. He came up and was telling the story about how, hey man, Dickey, Mike Smith, Eric Williams, they taught me that I needed to go start lifting some weights to get strong. He said these guys were the most physical, hard-nosed team that we had played against, and I learned right away I better get stronger if I'm going to play against Big East guys. So it's funny, and my guy Howard Isley. Howard Osley was always funny because he always talks about, man, you guys, you and Mike, all y'all would want to do is beat up on Bill when you play against him. So you guys are always out there beating guys up. So no, it was physical, and that was the only way we knew at that time.
So I want to take you to, let's visit the 1994 season, in particular the Big East tournament in '94. Okay, you guys came in and you get UConn in the semis.
Yeah,
right?
You're the 4 seed. UConn's the 1, right?
Yeah,
I think
yes.
so. Yeah, yeah. So you get UConn, and that team was stacked. They had Kevin Ollie. They had Ray. Ray was a freshman, I believe. Then you got Danielle Marshall and Donnie Marshall. You had Travis Knight. They were stacked. But you guys, you talk about that game, and in particular your game. You had a hell of a game against them that night. And wind up beating them, upsetting them, and then getting to the Big East finals. So talk about playing in that game and what that was all about, and at the Garden in particular.
Well, obviously playing in the Big East tournament at the Garden is just unbelievable. That's an unbelievable experience. Yeah. But leading up to that game, we had 3 things that were, I don't know if they were motivating factors, but I guess they were factors that we didn't want our last year to end off. We wanted to we wanted to win this thing. And the factors were, we came in as that top 5 recruiting class, and it was a rough start to that. And we didn't really start getting it kind of coming together to like our junior year. And then the other thing was, we had just lost to UConn in Providence. Kevin Ollie drives the length of the court and makes a layup at the buzzer when we had them beat. So that was on our mind. And then the last factor was, we were one of the hottest teams in college basketball at the time. So there was a lot of talk about Coach Barnes taking the Clemson job. And so with those 3 things leading up to the Big East tournament, you know, Rob Fells, Mike Smith, and myself were the captains of the team, and we called a meeting before we leave for New York. And I talk in the meeting about, you know, I just simply put it to everybody. You know, at this time we had a young Austin Crochet on the team. And I just said to everybody, I know you're trying to figure out if Coach Barnes is going to stay and leave, and you're trying to figure out your future. I'm here to tell everybody, Coach Barnes is going to leave. He's going to go to where the money is and to the next move. And I said, every college team and people out here are going to want winners. Let's go win this Big East championship, and then you guys can decide where you want to go, whether you want to stay here or you're going to have people wanting you to come there because you're a winner. And then we got on that bus. We went to New York. Everybody was focused. We had a mature team, veteran team. And Chuck and Sonny, when I look at that game, it's funny. I watch it every once in a blue moon, or somebody will send it to me. But do you know it was 9 NBA drafted players in that game on 2 teams? And it was 10 players that played in the NBA from both teams. And it's just amazing because you think about all this stuff now where people talk about one and done and projecting all these players to go to the NBA, but they weren't doing that back then. It was just, when you look, it was just that many NBA players on the court. So we get to New York, UConn is number 2 in the country, and that game felt like the championship game, and we were focused. We had a chip on our shoulder for them beating us in Providence with that game-winning layup. We had senior year, last year in the Garden, in the Big East tournament on our shoulders. And then we just had that competitive pissed offness between each other. You know, UConn didn't like us, we didn't like UConn. So it made for a great game. And the game was spectacular all the way down to the end.
Yeah. And then you come off of that, you come off of that upset, and then you got the Hoyas waiting for you in the finals, right?
Yeah, we had Georgetown waiting there for the final. But, the UConn game felt like the championship game for us. And so, but we didn't let the air out of the tires for the Georgetown game. But we were a little, Georgetown, I had a chip on my shoulder because, Coach Thompson, the late Coach Thompson, who I, admire, he came to recruit me late. I had already committed to Providence. So that was on, I had that chip. Anytime we played against Georgetown, I was trying to show Coach Thompson that, he missed on me. So we just had,
Especially
and then
growing
Mike
up
Smith.
from where you grew up from, right, Dickey? I mean, that was a
Yeah,
big deal.
absolutely. That was a big deal. So me and Michael Smith, we just had, we already had extra incentive and motivation towards Georgetown. And then, we just wanted to seal the deal. But that UConn game felt like the championship game. But just winning that Big East was, it was just amazing because the other piece to it was we brought Providence their first Big East championship ever. I think it was only one or two teams that had never won a Big East championship at the time. And we ended up bringing the first one. And obviously Ed Cooley duplicated it 20 years later. And this season, we're approaching the 30-year mark from when we won that first Big East championship.
That's right. Yep.
Now you finish up your season and you get drafted in the first round by the Bulls.
Yeah.
I mean, does it get any better than that? The 90 Bulls, 94 Bulls? Right?
Yeah, I mean, who would have thunk it, like they say, right? Who would have thunk it, right? No, things started just continuing to move in the right direction. I got invited to the three major NBA pre-draft events. I went and did what I had to do. I ended up watching the draft on TV in Louisville, Kentucky, because I wanted to be with my mother, and my mother was there for a conference or a convention. And so my agent and I flew to Louisville. We set up a war room. We're watching the draft, and I mean, it was surreal. It was just an unbelievable feeling to hear David Stern come up there and say, with the 21st pick, the Chicago Bulls select Dickey Simpkins. I mean, it was just amazing. All I did was just stand up and this time I put both fists in the air, but I didn't have to worry about anybody taking me out the game. Chuck and Sonny.
Yeah. Your mom wasn't pulling you. Don't worry.
Mom wasn't pulling you out the game, man.
Yeah. So it was an unbelievable feeling. And then it was like, obviously Chicago Bulls had a brand and they won those championships. And but it was, at the same time, it was being drafted by the team that, Michael Jordan decided to retire. So I was like, man, I'm not even gonna get to play with Michael Jordan. And then my rookie year, by December, Michael Jordan starts practicing with us. So yeah, Sonny, it was amazing to be selected by the Chicago Bulls and how life plays out.
So Mike is a baseball player when you get drafted, right?
Correct.
And then all of a sudden he just starts coming around practice and shooting around, and next thing you know, he's in scrimmages and stuff, correct?
Yeah, so the season starts, we start training camp, season starts in November, we're playing, and then all of a sudden we had practice, we had a early practice, and I got to the gym, the Berto Center, and I was like, I'm gonna lay down on the couch in the lounge before we practice. And so I'm laying down, I kind of doze off for a second. And there was a side door that came into the lounge and went to the locker room. All of a sudden, you're like that half sleep, and somebody comes in and says, "What's up, young fella?" and keeps walking. I'm like, I'm trying to open my eyes, and I said, that wasn't MJ. That wasn't MJ. I just shook my head. I said, I'm gonna go back to sleep for a couple of more minutes. I finally get up and start getting ready for practice. I go in there, and it was actually MJ. And then he just came a couple of times. He just came and just watched and talked to Phil. And then probably like a week after that, he started practicing with us. And the whole thing was keep it, nobody's talk about him practicing with us. And back then, social media wasn't out and it was a veteran team. So nothing was being leaked out about MJ practicing. And so he started practicing us. And then we kind of knew he's coming back.
So we're gonna ask you some names because this is just legendary time, and what you remember or any stories that you can think of. So first, we got to start off with one of our favorites, Bill Wennington, a great storyteller himself, by the way, a huge lover of Halloween. We found out through our conversations.
Yeah, so, it's coming up to Bill's big day soon.
Tell us a little bit about your interactions or anything about Bill Wennington.
So Bill is one of my good friends today. Bill is unbelievable. It was an unbelievable veteran to help me with my transition. But I used to always kill Bill. I used to always kill Bill with this right here. I used to always tell him, I said, Bill, I remember coming to a Georgetown St. John's game when I was in the 6th grade, and now I'm playing with you. I said, hold on, man, let me go get this rocking chair for you. So I would always mess with him about going to a Georgetown St. John's game at the Cap Center, at the Capitol Center in DC, watching him and Chris Mullins and Walter Berry. And Bill always had that dunk off the one leg. And I said, man, I am actually playing with you. So I would always kill him. But Bill's unbelievable. He's great. He likes to have fun, jokester, but he was one of the best vets to help me with my transition. And we're still close today.
Okay, next one. You want to go, Chuck? You want me to keep going?
Yeah, I'll take one. How about Dennis Rodman? What was that like being on his team? That had to be I can't even.
It had to be different.
That would
Let's
be
say
like.
different. Had to be different.
Yeah, different would be the right word. I would.
It was very interesting. Very interesting. The one thing that whenever I talk about Dennis, the first thing that I always tell people when they ask me, I said, regardless of everything that you saw, perceived, believed, or didn't believe, the guy showed up to perform all the time, came and did his job. And it was just amazing seeing D-Rod do his job with all the other stuff that was around him, him marrying himself to, jumping on a private plane, going to Vegas to gamble in between the playoffs, to, just hanging out with some of the friends that you've seen throughout the media that you hung out. I mean, to have all those things going on around you and to have the ability and the understanding and the knack to turn that into a marketing tool for yourself and still come out there and perform was unbelievable. But I also always tell the story. I always ask people, how many times D-Rod wasn't a talkative person. And I always ask people, how many conversations you think Dennis Rodman and I had through 3 seasons together?
Take a guess. I'm gonna
say 3, one a year. I say 3, one a year.
That was a good process of coming up with that 3. What do you think, Sonny?
Well, that's what I said. He took my answer. I said 3, same thing. So
in 3 seasons, Dennis Rodman and I had 2 conversations.
Wow, pretty close.
3 seasons. So, like, D-Rod didn't talk that much. And I was like, man, what's up with this guy, man? He doesn't talk to anybody? Like, what? And so at first I was kind of resistant to it. I was like, I mean, if he's not going to talk, I'm not going to talk. Like, I mean, I get it, Dennis Rodman, whatever. So then I get to know that that's his personality. And so he's hurt that year we won 72 games. He's hurt that he starts the season, then he gets hurt. He's out for like 2 months or like a month and a half, 2 months. I end up starting for him throughout that time. And all of a sudden, we just played somebody. We're on a flight heading to the next game. And D-Rod sits next to me on the plane. So I'm like looking at him like, is this, you can't be serious. Am I getting punked right now? Am I on the episode of Punk? Like, and he sits next to me and he says, "What's up, bro?" He said, "What's up, bro? How do you feel like you're playing?" I couldn't believe like this. I was like, "What's going on?" So I was like, I think I'm doing pretty good, picking up, playing in your spot while you hurt and just doing what I'm supposed to do. I think it's going well. And he was like, you're playing very well. And he started giving me some pointers and to help me. And I was like, I thought that was real cool. Like
It's
it
cool.
really made me look at D-Rod a little differently. And then the next time we talked after that was when we won the last championship. And everybody was excited. We kind of knew that was going to be the last go round. We talked, um, and then after that, D-Rod threw a party in Vegas. After the championship, I went to Vegas and hung out at his party. Um, and then we talked. Fast forward, I'm at the Super Bowl in Phoenix. I'm going to this party that's hidden away in some hills where you got to get on a bus and you can't drive there. Some secret party. I start walking up the hill and guess who's standing outside the door? D-Rod. He sees me, he smiles, and we start talking, and we literally talked the whole night. And
Wow.
I was like, dude, we talked for two times in 3 years, and we talked the whole night, and we had a great conversation, man. D-Rod's the best, man. I saw
So,
D-Rod 2 summers ago.
so were you there then when he took his vacation and went to
Yes,
Vegas and Mike and Scotty had to go get him?
yes, yeah. I was there. Yep,
And
I
that
was
was
there the whole
all
time. When,
during the filming of that whole thing, The Last Dance, right? Was that a distraction
yes.
for you guys with the cameras around and stuff?
Nah. Actually, it wasn't a distraction. I mean, it was like being with a rock band. But it wasn't a distraction because, yeah, no, it wasn't a distraction actually because we had a veteran team. I was like the youngest guy on the team. I was the youngest guy. Then Jason Caffey came. He was the youngest, but we had a veteran team. So, and then MJ was the ultimate leader. Like, he was a leader on every facet. Like, and you didn't. It was about business, and nobody was slacking on what was the main goal. And so it wasn't a distraction like people would think, or like it is nowadays with social media and everybody getting sidetracked on their own personal brand. Because all the stuff the guys are doing now, Dennis Rodman's kind of set the stage for all that, what everybody's doing now. But
Yeah.
he could manage that. We were able to manage it. Phil was able to manage it, and we had an ultimate leader in MJ and the ultimate respect MJ had for Phil, which made it work. But like anything you do, you have to know your personnel. You have to know what makes guys tick. And when Dennis came to us, they knew what made Dennis tick. They knew what Dennis needed to have outlets as long as he did his job. And whatever it seemed like it got out of hand, was getting ready to head towards getting out of hand, MJ, Pip, and Phil would have a meeting with him, and then everything would get reeled back in.
Speaking of Pip, tell us a little bit about Scottie Pippen. Tell us a little story or two.
um, Pip, I knew Pip was the real deal as a player, and one of the best players that ever played this game when we were playing the Dallas Mavericks at the United Center. And Jamal Mashburn was going to work. And Jamal had one of the best games. I want to say Jamal Mashburn might have broke the United Center record at that time with 50 points. And Pip was pissed off. and Pip took one of the seat. He ripped up one of the seats from the bench, took that seat, walked a couple of steps, and threw the chair in the middle of half court. And when I saw him do that, I said, only a guy that's one of the best players to play this game can pick up a chair and throw it in the middle of the court. But where I really respected Pip and where I was like, this guy's the real deal, like a week later, we go to Dallas to play the Mavericks, and Pip remembered Jamal Mashburn having that great game. And when I say he had vengeance on his mind, Pip went to work to prove, well, I don't know prove, but just to make a statement that you had a one time, but I'm a guy that's been out here winning championships, and he went to work and responded. And that made me have ultimate respect for Scotty. But Pip's was a good teammate. He was another veteran to show me the way, take me under his wings. And you know, like everybody's seen The Last Dance. You know, obviously it was a lot of things that you know were challenges for Pip to, you know, try to balance between the ultimate goal and what he needed to have taken care of. I mean, that's no mystery based on what was portrayed in the documentary. But at the end of the day, Pip was a good teammate to me and a good guy.
How about playing for Phil? What was that about? What was that like? You hear all about the Zen and how he gets everybody moving in the one direction. That seems to be one of his trademark traits, right, Dickey? I mean, he took all those personalities on that squad in particular, and the Lakers when he was with LA, and had them all moving in one direction. Yeah,
I would say Phil. Well, first of all, when I first got into the Bulls, it's not like today. Young guys and rookies, you had to wait your turn, so that was a challenge. But I understood it. But I would have difficult times, like, you know, waiting for my moment. And then when I did get my moment, I performed, and D-Rod came back to playing. You know, it was back to, you know, you wait your turn. So that was tough. And it took me time to understand. But all in all, Phil's approach to the game, just from a mental standpoint and being able to manage personalities, he had a high level of that. But I would say also, I think what people don't fail to see or realize, Phil was able to have success with personalities because he had the respect of the best player on our team. And the fact that he had the respect of the best player on our team, and they respected each other, it trickled down and made everybody else, you know, fall in line to what their role was and responsibilities to winning the championship. So because he had that respect, that helped a lot. That's also carried over to help him gain the respect of Kobe and Shaq in LA because he had already done it. But that respect he had. But Phil's approach was mental part. We were like one of the first teams doing the, you know, the breathing and the meditation stuff before games. And instead of going to shoot around, he would have a guy come and we would do visualization, and then Phil would, you know, he's about the Zen and when I was a rookie, Phil had me read a book. I had to read a chapter. No, not a chapter. I had to read like 4 pages every day before practice in front of the team of this book. I don't know why he made me. He was like, "This what you're a rookie. You got to read this book." And so I started having fun with it. I started turning it into like I was doing a sermon at a church, and the guys would start laughing and stuff. So I had fun with the book. But the method to the madness was for me to understand the process, understand where I am as a young player and where I needed to go, and to show that I could gain respect from my teammates as a young guy. So, you know, Phil had a lot of mental approach with his Zen and managing personalities. So
now you're playing with the greatest player of all time, right? The GOAT, everything. So, and everybody talks about his competitiveness. I mean, Bill Wennington tells a story about his competitiveness driving to the arena. and like flying in his car, and then Bill was driving some old Grateful Dead van, and he talked about that, right? So tell us a little bit about some of your encounters or experiences with the greatest ever.
Again, it's no mystery that MJ's competitiveness drove a lot of our success, or a lot of the Bulls' success, or drove the energy in the direction of everybody else. I mean, from card games to golf to anything, he was super competitive on. And the other thing is, I mean, you talk about load management in today's NBA. MJ practiced every day. Phil would have to tell him that he doesn't have the practice for the MJ to take off. But MJ could drop 55 back-to-back games and come and practice the next day. And practice, he made practice intensity like games, and talk trash and competitive on everything, shooting drills. And then when we scrimmage, and then when Phil wanted to really make it competitive, when he really wanted to take practice to another level, he would put Pip on the other team. Didn't happen often, but he would put Pip on the other team, and MJ would even take it to a whole nother level to make sure Pip understood he was the little brother and MJ was the big brother. But yeah, MJ was competitive everything. I mean, he's just so focused, and you had to respect his approach because he did it in practice, he did it on the court, and he did it in critical and amazing moments and an amazing style on the court. And when you talk about leadership, it set the tone where everybody fell in place, and you didn't want to let the team down. You didn't want to let MJ down. You didn't want to let your teammates down, and you wanted to do your job.
Yeah, unbelievable. So we're up against it a little bit. So I have one last question for you, and we'll get rolling. So as you talk to kids, and you said you had your own AAU program, and people want to know about, what do I have to do to get to where you were, and that kind of thing. What kind of things do you tell them? And specifically, do you talk to them about, because we do our due diligence here, Dickey. We made some calls to people that know you pretty well, and everybody was so impressed with your Hall of Fame induction speech, to a man, okay? Especially talking about being in the moment and being present. Talk about that, and is that some of the things that you talk to youngsters about as you're mentoring young guys that are coming up in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been able to build a grassroots program that's helped a lot of kids make it to the NBA, play high college basketball, play overseas, and do other things that are outside of sports. And they reach out to me on a regular basis. I communicate with a lot of the kids that came through my program, because my whole thing is about a 24/7 mentorship through life. And so the things that I try to tell the kids, study your craft. If this is what you really want to do, study it. Respect this game. Put your time in. And then when you are on a team, really know what your role is, and then be that guy that can embrace your role, because everybody's not going to be a star, but be a star in your role. And then I'll talk about the moment and how preparation builds instinct. And if you properly prepare, you're going to have proper instincts to react in the moment of anything. You're going to have a higher chance, and you're going to be able to capitalize in a moment. And I always talk about the moments that I had being on the court with MJ. And I remember there was a time where we were playing the San Antonio Spurs in the United Center. MJ gets the rebound, and somehow it's going into the final seconds of the half. And MJ dribbles down. He's got Scotty on the left. MJ's in the middle, and I'm running the right wing. Well, you would think first option, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth option is MJ. Sixth option is Pip, and I'm probably no option at all, right? And the clock's running down. MJ dribbles down. He looks Pip off, and he flings it to me on the right wing, and I catch it, and I let it fly and knock down a three at the buzzer. And when I knocked down a three at the buzzer, my mother used to always tell me, act like you've been there. So I run into the locker room. I keep going into the locker room. Everybody comes into the locker room. I look at MJ and I say, you made the right decision. So I'm saying all that to say that you do these things and prepare for the moment with proper preparation and instinct. And I try to tell the kids this is what will help you have the highest chance of success in playing this game. There's no guarantees, but it will give you the highest chance.
Yep.
And so that's how I break down the three phases for the kids.
Great stuff, man.
Great stuff,
played
man.
with the best of the best. So
yeah,
I've
you
been
got
fortunate.
experiences that
sure
a lot of
you
people
got
don't
their
even come
attention.
close to getting. So good for you. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah,
thank you
no,
so
I
much for
appreciate it.
spending time with us and taking time out of your night to hang with Sonny and I and do the show. We really appreciate you being here, pal.
Well, I appreciate you guys reaching out to me. I appreciate the clips or me playing or the Providence team back in the day. I appreciate how you highlight everybody when you guys get a chance. And it's been great, man. It's great that you guys started this and showing the history. And I'm happy for you that Parquet put you guys in media day. I might see you guys there.
All right. We'll definitely look for you. Hang out for a few minutes while we wrap this up. So you've been listening to and watching the Big East Rewind with Chuck Everson and Sonny Sparrow. The Big East Rewind was produced and directed by Nick Chicocoris, Daryl Gurney, and our new partners, Boundless Ventures. And you can check us out on all things social media by putting Big East Rewind in the search bar. We ask you to go online, and when you see us on YouTube or when you listen to us on wherever you get your podcast, that you like and share it with your friends and subscribe, please. So we appreciate all of you. Thanks a lot for joining us. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.